more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And I just want to remind everybody there is a website. So if you've missed anything or this is your first time hearing us on KVTA, go to the website, livingyourinspiredlife.org, and tune in and tune up to what the conversation's been up until today. And today, in studio, I have producer and colleague Joyce Sherwood. Joyce, thanks for being here.
Hi, Susan. It's great to be here.
So for those of you that may not know, Joyce and I, a few weeks ago, we started the conversation about finding the new normal and what does that look like. And we've also done a book study with our small group in Ojai on the book called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. And so we're going to talk about all of that and see if we can't seed some new ideas or possibilities for ourselves and for you, the listener, of what the new normal could be. Because really, because of everything that's happened recently in time, in the conversation we had with Greg Braden, we've reached a turning point where there really is no going back to what we thought was normal, whether it's economically, spiritually, physically, mentally. The normal that we used to live in has kind of expired, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's
gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's not coming back.
No.
Mm-mm.
And so many of us are waiting for
that return to our comfort zone, which is what the old normal
Yeah.
was. It wasn't so great, but we knew what it was.
We knew what it was.
Yeah.
And you know, and actually when you said that, Joyce, I'm hearing, wow, that's kind of nuts though. Why would you go back to what
it wasn't perfect.
we were comfortable with?
No, we were comfortable with it, and yet, now we have an opportunity for something new and better.
Right. So finding a new normal, at least in my personal experience lately, involves risk-taking. It involves being willing to be vulnerable and being willing to do something even though it doesn't feel, quote-unquote, normal or doesn't feel comfortable. And in my personal experience, what I'm finding is the more willing I am to try something new or think something different to see how it affects my life, it actually is making my life different and better in ways that I really couldn't contemplate. I couldn't imagine when I was stuck in my old normal.
One of my new normals that I've been practicing this week is apologizing first.
Ooh.
Rather than defending my point of view or why I did that, just go right to, I am so sorry. I wasn't thinking of it that way. I just was so excited, or I was so this, or, I'm just sorry. And just stop with the explanations. And so this is something I'm trying in my new normal. And it's working pretty good. I'm not getting stuck. And whoever I'm with we're not getting stuck together in the story and this old way of being. It's like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
Joyce, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and it is it's risk taking, and it's making myself vulnerable, and it's showing up as less than perfect.
Right. Which it leads us to this idea from Brené Brown's book, The Gift of Imperfections. What's the second part, Joyce?
Let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are.
Oh, I just felt that. Embrace who you are. So that's like, this book, what we found is there's some onion peeling in this book. At least that was what I felt when we talked about it, because Brené Brown talks about, from all the research, because she's a researcher, all the research she's done is that there are people that are living a whole life, WHOLE. And so she's developed this idea of wholehearted living.
Wholehearted living is having courage. It's having compassion and connection. It's about really, really belonging instead of fitting in. And I think it really interweaves itself with Greg Braden's The New Normal. This is a way for you to gently change what your normal is, to up-level your normal.
To up-level your normal, yes, because it's and I want to speak a minute about new normal, though, but to up-level your new normal, because there's practices and ideas that she talks about that when you think about it, you're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense and sounds a lot more fun. And it feels like my life could be wholehearted and full if I do it that way instead of the old default of what I thought was normal. And we're seeing this with so many people in the world right now. There's this, wherever I go, I'm having conversations with people where if they want to talk about what's happening in the economy, and you know, I have my taxes done, and the CPA, lovely person, wanted to explain to me what was quote unquote normal. And now after this exploration of what is the new normal, I'm watching all this going, wow, I see where what was normal is more of a judgment and an opinion than, and it's not necessarily so.
Right. A lot of people's normals are their opinions. It's normal for me, so therefore it must be normal for you too.
Yeah, right.
But we each have our normal.
Yeah.
Another way to look at it. Whatever your normal is, think about up-leveling it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, on Living Your Inspired Life here, we talk about shifting your perspective just 1 degree opens up windows and doors to see other possibilities and other places where you can create a very amazing, inspired life if you just shift that perception. And that, I think, is what looking for your new normal is really about.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So in Brené's book, she talks about, besides the courage and that we all need or have courage and love and our need to belong and have connection, she's developed these guideposts that we're going to run through today because they're really interesting in the way she words them. I knew I had to read the book and see what she had to say. So the first guidepost she calls cultivating authenticity. Now, I do have to say, Joyce, that A word, authenticity.
Does that frighten you?
It's a buzzword now. You know, it's like a jargon word. It's like anybody that's doing any kind of self-exploration, it always kind of goes back to that A word, authenticity. I don't know why it is a buzzword for me now, but
So let's look at it a good way, that it's a buzzword and everyone is contemplating it. And so what does being more authentic? And so more people being more authentic must be, how could that be a bad thing?
Right. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. And I find in my seeking personal authenticity, which I guess that's really redundant. That's what authenticity really means, right?
Well, let me read you Brené's definition of authenticity. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. That to me is so simple and so right to the point.
It is.
I really like that.
And you know, the thing for me is, so I guess the thing for me about authenticity and embracing who we are is it does take a risk.
Yes.
And it does take feeling vulnerable in ways that we may not be used to.
Right.
And that's for me in my personal exploration. I'm finding the vulnerability is when I feel vulnerable now, where I used to like protect myself and defend myself, like you were saying about apologizing.
Right.
When I feel vulnerable, I realize that's my cue to open up more.
Ooh.
And therefore become more authentic. Say whatever it is I need to say, or hold the boundary or whatever.
Right. Yep. She says that authenticity isn't always a safe option. Sometimes choosing being real over being liked is all about playing unsafe.
Oh boy, can you feel that?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you imagine if we, I see this with kids. I used to when my son was in elementary school. The kids that were more out of the box, different.
Yes.
Were also the kids that looked like they were having a lot more fun than the kids that were trying to be like everybody else or dress like everybody else or trying to fit in. The ones that were, and it's interesting because in the old normal, we would define those people as, well, they're just creative.
Right.
As opposed to, wow, they're authentic.
Right.
They're being truly who they are.
Right.
Good for them.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So in order to cultivate authenticity, she says it's letting go of what people think.
Right.
Letting go of what you think people think about you.
Right. Right. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Letting go of what people think. So much of many people's lives up until now have been ruled by what will others think of us? What will they think of us? And finally, it's taken maybe years and maturity to say, you know what? They're thinking about themselves. They're not really thinking about me.
Wow, who knew?
Yeah.
And isn't that good?
And now it's a good thing.
And so I can stop thinking about them.
Right.
And worrying about what they think.
Right, right.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
So then the second guidepost is cultivating self-compassion and letting go of perfectionism. And I got to say, when I read this in the table of contents, I went, oh, that's for me. That one's for me. And I think when we did the book study, this is the one that made me squirm the most because, being self-compassionate. Wow.
It's so easy to forgive others, their errors, and when we turn that light on ourselves, I know I'm really harsh on myself.
I am too.
Yeah.
And part of that is at least for me, the perfectionism that I developed as a kid and lived my life without even realizing, thinking, well, isn't this what everybody should be doing?
Right.
Again, it's that projection of, well, everybody should be doing this. So
I think until I became aware of different learning styles, I was more of a perfectionist seeker. And then when I became aware of different learning styles, some people are auditory learners or kinesthetic learners or visual learners, I realized, okay, so learning looks different for other people, and there's no one way to do it. Because I'm able to sit down and read something and then go do it doesn't mean that everybody else can. Somebody might need to see a video of it to go do it. So letting go of the need to be perfect in even in learning or education is simply, oh, okay, there's other ways to do it.
When I was a kid, I used to, when I was in the later part of elementary school, I don't know where this came from, but I started making lists of things that I needed to do to improve myself. Okay, isn't that kind of scary?
Wow.
But I did. And then I remember trying to enlist my two best friends. Hey, let's all make this list together and let's improve ourselves. They looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh,
they're like, what are you talking about? Let's go get a hamburger. Improve ourselves, And I guess at that point I kind of thought I was strange. Because, but that was also, now I realize it was part of feeding that perfectionism that.
Oh, I see.
Because she says that perfectionism isn't about healthy striving or self-improvement. It's not that perfectionism is actually a self-destructive and or addictive behavior that keeps us in a belief system that really isn't true and really doesn't work.
Yeah, I can see that. However, when I think of perfectionism as, because I also was like, oh, well, but wouldn't you want to be just a little better or a little this or a little that? I think it's when when you set the goal so high or when that's all you're concentrating on is achieving that's when it gets out of balance.
Right, and that's why she calls it healthy striving as opposed to trying to be perfect. And this also goes back to letting go of what people think about you. I got to be perfect because if people...
I always get A's. If I don't get an A this time, then I'm not perfect.
Right, or my parents aren't going to be proud of me, or I'm not, or the college I want to go to isn't going to accept me, or,
Right.
It's kind of an insidious thing, I think, in our culture. This idea, because we're going to talk about that later, about the comparison and competition. But,
right.
I just want to read this one thing. She says, Brene Brown says, where perfectionism exists, shame is always lurking. In fact, shame is the birthplace of perfectionism.
Wow.
And that kind of twisted my mind a bit when I started thinking about that. Because I was just thinking that being perfect or striving towards perfectionism and the straight A's and yada yada is just kind of, like I said, what you do in life.
Right.
But when I started to kind of wrap my mind around, well, it could be fueled by something I'm ashamed of. Wow.
Well, yeah. So you cover it up by being perfect, so no one's looking over there where the shame
Right.
is. They're always looking on the other side where the perfection
Right.
is.
It's the
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors.
Right.
Ta-da. Yeah. And isn't that interesting? I think that there are lots of people in the world that have some sort of hidden idea of something they feel ashamed about. And it may or may not be true.
Right.
That's the other thing. Whatever we're hiding in the shadows of our minds and our hearts may or may not be true.
Right.
And so she talks about speaking your truth to shame, saying, here's to a close friend, here's
Yes.
what I am feeling ashamed about. I did this and this is what I'm feeling ashamed about, because then you're shining, like you said, then you're shining the light on it.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't have to hide it.
Yeah. To have that trusted friend or confidant that you're able to share that with is the way to release it, so you're not holding on to it and shining light on it, and the person hears you, and whether they could even say, I had a similar experience, and you go, oh, well, I'm not alone then.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, and I think a majority of us tend to think that we have to do things by ourselves in order to really be successful or achieve, and we are alone when we are not necessarily successful. We're by ourselves because nobody wants to hang with a loser.
Right. So we need to go off in the corner and lick our wounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is too bad,
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah.
And this is why she's also talking about it takes, to live a wholehearted life takes courage, compassion, and connection. Being connected with people so they can, like you and I safely reflect to each other
Right.
what we actually hear and see when we're sharing with each other, as opposed to going, oh, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And the other piece about this perfectionism thing is that I'm recognizing it within myself, having studied this book now. And she says this, it develops a cycle that's hard to break, of blaming yourself and judging yourself, or blaming and judging others,
Right.
and looping you into where places where you feel ashamed. And I know in my life, because I started that journey, I guess, if you will, so early in life, it's an automatic that I am now saying is my old normal.
Right.
Because I really get now in my middle years, it really doesn't work for me. Perfectionism and achieving in the ways I used to think I should doesn't work. And that's the thing about the normal. A majority of the normal stuff that we've done up until now, or thought or participated in, isn't working, because those paradigms are breaking down. So this was like a gift to me to realize that perfectionism thing, and then to practice. Okay, this is a hard thing for me. Changing my self-talk.
Right.
Do you find it hard?
The little monkey mind that
goes
blah 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 blah. I've become a lot more conscious of that. Yeah, and I catch myself doing that, and then I consciously replace it with something, and not necessarily even on the same subject, but just replace it with even a song or a mantra or some other thought.
Right.
That just.
So you're changing the channel.
Just changing the channel, exactly. That's
like
a good
that.
way to put it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I like that, and that takes some.
It takes a little bit of skill and practice.
Yeah.
Practice doing
to watch
that.
what you're saying, and to then talk to yourself with some self-compassion and
Right.
humility. Not humility and being embarrassed, but humility because you're so compassionate with yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So then the next guidepost that she has is called Cultivating a Resilient Spirit, Letting Go of Numbing and Powerlessness.
Right. I really like this word resilience, and I think it really ties in with the new normal also. Resilience is the ability to overcome adversity. And she says it's grounded in spirituality. And
Isn't that interesting?
that is interesting.
Well, okay, so her definition of spirituality for everybody out there, spirituality, I can say that 3 times fast, I'm sure, is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose in our lives. And that is part of what makes us resilient.
Right.
I mean, when you see the survivors from the earthquake, or the thing that happened in the Philippines.
Yeah, the tsunami.
Tsunami, thank you. And you see those people, and literally right after that hits, and they're getting up off the ground, crawling out from the debris, and standing up and helping each other. Now, I would not connect it with being spiritual, and yet that's what she just described. It's our connection to that power and to one another that's grounded in love and compassion.
Right, right. And she says it's essential to resilience is also to cultivate hope, to practice critical awareness, and to let go of this numbing and taking the edge off of vulnerability, discomfort, and pain, so that we when things get tough, often our tendency is to numb ourselves, and so that it doesn't hurt so much. It takes the edge off. So numbing ourselves to the pain numbs us to the highs also. So we're stuck in sort of a murky middle ground there. So then she goes on to speak about hope. Now this was interesting to me, that hope is not an emotion. It's a way of thinking or a cognitive process, by her definition. Hope is not an emotion. It's a way of thinking or a cognitive process.
Okay, so that blew my mind too, because to me, my experience of hope is as a feeling.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that things will work out the way I'd like.
Or when things are really happening and that hope kind of causes your heart to open and surge.
Yes.
I mean, that's how I feel. So this idea of it being a process, a cognitive way of thinking.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Joyce?
So,
I mean,
I'm a little...
I want to tease that out more.
It's not quite... Maybe I have an old paradigm of hope, but that's not what... I think hope is definitely an emotion. And yes, I'd like to have it be backed up by a way of thinking it. But it's more than looking at the glass, whether it's half full or half empty. It's a quality of faith, maybe a little bit of faith in there, or.
But in order to have hope, it's almost like you have to really know that you're connected, which goes back to this idea of spirituality, recognizing and celebrating that we're all connected, right? So so I guess that's why the two go together,
right?
This quote, okay, so here's a quote. If we want to cultivate hopefulness, we have to be willing to be flexible and demonstrate perseverance. Tolerance for disappointment, determination, and a belief in self are all at the heart of hope. So in my past experience, because I'm letting it go now, it's not normal for me anymore to be the perfectionist. But in that past experience of perfection, I was certainly persevering things. I was certainly determined. Right. But what I wasn't was willing to be flexible. And the two going together, the flexibility with continuing on anyway, which is what we see with the survivors of the tsunami or the earthquakes or all of that, is this: you just get up and put one foot in front of the other. You are determined anyway, and the situation puts you in a new normal, a new experience of how to be more flexible. And I don't want to wait for a tsunami. I don't want to wait for a death, a diagnosis, a divorce, a job loss to knock me over and then go, I guess I should have been flexible. Oops. That's the thing I'm trying to cultivate now.
Yeah, inviting flexibility and the ability to be flexible and to recognize when it might be okay to be flexible.
Right,
Yeah.
as opposed to this...
to the rigidity and the strive for perfection. I think that keeps us in a more rigid way of being.
Right, and I got to tell you, just in opening up my mind to this awareness of that I'm a recovering perfectionist,
There you go.
that I certainly am having lots of opportunities to see where my thinking or my opinion or my way of doing things is kind of rigid, and that there's other possibilities, like we talk about on Living Your Inspired Life.
Right.
There's other ideas. There's other ways of looking at things that I haven't quite seen yet.
Right. Right.
So it's helping me to be a little bit more of a risk taker and everything.
Uh-huh.
So she talks about in this idea of cultivating a resilient spirit is doing what a reality check. Like, is this really happening? Is what I'm seeing or what I'm experiencing really real? And that's an interesting question to ask yourself, because for so many people, what they're experiencing, they think is absolutely real. A lot of us don't get that our experience has been also generated by the emotions that we put behind it that power it. And if we're having a negative experience and we're all upset and angry about it, those emotions are really the thing that are powering it. And the experience isn't necessarily
bad. It may not be
Right.
that bad. We're judging it as bad.
Right. It's not necessarily
it's an
negative.
emotional reaction.
Yeah. And so then in doing this reality check, is this what I'm experiencing or seeing real? Then we get to make a choice out of that when we can kind of tease it apart and go, okay, so is what I'm experiencing actually reflective of a wholehearted life, of the life I want or the life I'm choosing and creating now? Is it really, or do I need to make another change?
Yep. And being willing to step in and make a change. Sorry, I know we agreed this, but that's not working very well.
Right.
For you or for me or for both of us. So let's change it.
Boy, that goes back to flexibility, eh?
Yeah, flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, Joyce, but when I make a plan, I really want to stick to the plan.
Yeah.
I like that other people get on board and want to be on the plan with me.
Right.
And what in the last couple of few years, what I've realized is the plan can change daily, and that's okay.
Yes. Yep.
And it's interesting, I was thinking about this business person I was talking to yesterday, and he's a CEO of a company, a company that's going from middle range to large internationally, and a lot of their business plan is about the growth of the company. And what I was noticing in this conversation we were having is that the company was also going to be leaving a few people behind, like lots of people. And I'm talking about people that they could serve with their business.
Yes.
And he said, but our business plan, our 5-year business plan is this kind of growth and expansion. And I thought, well, wow, that's putting the blinders on to achieve the thing. And what if the plan opens up and changes a little bit to include these other people that would love to
be a part of it.
And nope, this is the 5-year business plan. I'm like, oh, kind of like with the CPA. Nope, these are the rules.
Yep.
So, and she says, once we start seeing the big picture, we're better able to reality check our shame triggers and the messages and expectations that were never good enough. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And this numbing behavior is what we engage in so that we can either avoid the pain, like you said,
Right.
or the sorrow or whatever it is. But it also keeps us from feeling the happiness too. So now we're back to vulnerability.
Right. Yeah.
Oy.
Yep.
Oy, vulnerability in the numbing. And we all do it, so I want to just share with everybody, we all do it. Don't worry about whatever your numbing is. Just begin to ask yourself the question, is this really what I want to experience? Is this really, do I really want to zone out with the entire series of Star Trek every day? Or do I want to take time now to open up to what is my next normal? What is the thing I really want to do? And how can I be creative about that?
Right. Yeah.
So the last thing in this chapter that I really loved, because on Living Your Inspired Life, we're all about collaboration and connection. And the thing she said is the heart of spirituality is connection.
I love that.
And it's not even just connection within your own heart, right? But to other people.
Right.
Which I guess is why she's calling this the wholehearted
living.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next
Number
guide,
4,
please.
cultivating gratitude and joy letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. I like that she calls gratitude and joy a practice. That
Yeah.
these are things to practice. That we don't just come up with them. That we practice that. She says happiness is tied to circumstances, and joyfulness is tied to spirit and gratitude.
Okay, now that's interesting.
Yeah, the difference between happiness and joyfulness. I like that.
So the fact that, not the fact, but what she's uncovered in her research is that this happiness is totally based on circumstance. It kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I thought happiness was based on joy, and so you could be happy. So part of what she says about that, right, is that in the circumstance changes, and then you're not happy anymore,
Right.
or the right,
Yeah, when your circumstances change, then that affects your happiness.
right,
Yeah.
and
But the joyfulness is a more internalized point of view, a more internalized way of being, and it's tied to spirit and to gratitude.
and cultivating that,
Right.
it has to be grown. It
Yeah.
can't be,
Yep.
like you said, experienced with just one pop.
Right. And she said that the cultivating gratitude then leads you to joyfulness. When you're grateful, we've talked about gratitude lists and being grateful for things, and that the more grateful you are, you attract more things into your life to be grateful for. It's the like attracting like. So that this is actually a way to build your resilience, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, to practice gratitude and increase your resilience, and that makes you less fearful of being vulnerable. You see, it all sort of ties
Right.
together, all these things.
Right. It's interesting because I have a friend who they don't say grace at dinner. They go around the table and say a thankful for the day. And they do this as a family every day. Mm-hmm. And now their kids are in their early 30s. And when they come home, they still all do this thankful. This is what I'm thankful for today.
I like that.
Isn't that powerful?
It's a great practice.
It's
yeah.
a great practice. And for our listeners, if you haven't done it yet, I would invite you to do what Joyce was talking about. Start a gratitude list. And it can be listing 5 to 10 things before you even get out of bed in the morning. What am I grateful for to begin your day? And then what am I grateful for at the end of the day? And do that list, because it does lift you more into joy, and it is a practice.
Right. It
So
absolutely is.
So let's go to the other piece of this, letting go of scarcity and fear, because it's interesting that she's tied that with gratitude and joy.
Yep.
And the thing I know about fear is it tends to shut down my access to joy or even being happy in the circumstance. If I'm afraid of something that I'm doing or being or experiencing, then the happiness factor can't come in there, and forget the joy. It just is all I'm wrapped up with anxiety.
Yeah, fear really activates our survival instinct.
Yeah.
So that our whole body tenses up, and that we can only really think about our own safety, and that's a priority. So we're not able to activate the higher part of our brain where rational thinking goes on, and then fear is you can find it everywhere, and then it's getting your control of your fear or shining the light on it so that you see. She actually says that the dark does not destroy the light, it defines it. It is our fear of the dark that casts our joy into the shadows.
Wow, I can feel that as you read that.
Yeah.
And Joyce, here's the thing I really want to continue to affirm for everybody is the old normal that we are really recognizing doesn't work anymore is fear-based.
Right.
And that's, oh my gosh, why do we see so many Americans stressed out, developing diseases from stress and anxiety? Is because they're living on a constant ration of fear, daily fear.
Right.
That, and I'm telling you guys out there, it doesn't work. It's only creating more dis-ease, discomfort, and scarcity.
Right. Yep. I think our fear of that there won't be enough. There won't be enough for us. There won't be enough for our family. We're going to run out of whatever it is we're talking about. But that to counteract that, every time you have a a fear sense of not being enough to affirm that there is enough. There's enough for everyone. There's enough to go around. There's a sufficient amount of whatever it is to meet all our needs.
And again, that takes a conscious practice, just like
Absolutely.
practicing joy and gratitude. It's changing your mind to sufficiency is huge. And that's it's very similar to this affirmation I've been using for the last few years, which is I am enough, which is what this book is all about, knowing that you're enough.
Right.
I am enough. I have more than enough, and there is more than enough for everybody. And that is what I'm claiming as my new normal.
Okay.
And I think and I'm claiming it for the world, everybody. There is more than enough for everybody.
Right. Right.
We just have to learn how to share
right. I think.
nicely.
And one other thing she talks about in this chapter is the word ordinary, how we've equated the word ordinary with boring and even meaningless. It's how it's just not enough to be ordinary anymore. I thought that was interesting. You're trying to shine a more positive light on ordinary. But yeah, I think of ordinary as being sort of run of the mill.
Yeah, but you know what? That goes back to the perfectionism thing. You have to be extraordinary in order to be perfect.
Right.
In order to have all the things you think you're supposed to have. Whereas being ordinary is just like, wow, I'm just living my life. I'm doing the whatever it is, the thing that just provides for me and provides for my family. And that is really a more wholehearted life, I think.
I think so.
Instead of living in all that
fear
and wanting to be extraordinary. It just ramps people up.
Yeah. Yep.
So the next one is cultivating intuition and trusting faith, letting go of the need for certainty. Okay, letting go of the need for certainty. That's the thing that triggered me.
Yeah, the need for certainty.
Well, hello, I want to be perfect, and therefore I need to know that my plan is working. Isn't that the need for certainty?
Yes. Yeah. It's this is my plan, and it's going the way I wanted it to, and then it doesn't. So then what happens?
Right. And this goes back to the vulnerability piece again, and what you shared at the beginning of deciding you're going to apologize first. Then that lets go of that need for certainty to open up, okay, so what's, if not this, then what?
Right.
Right? Which is kind of cultivates your new normal.
Right.
So, and I think that so many of us have been culturalized, pasteurized, maybe even brainwashed into thinking that all our answers and solutions reside outside of us. So therefore we listen to the nightly news to find out what the solution is or what the story is, or we go and talk to an expert, which I'm not knocking doing that.
Right.
But there's also a place where you have also got to trust your own intuition.
Right.
And trust it in a way that you can begin to recognize that what your intuition is telling you, or what your gut instinct is really more authentic to you, right? Going back to the A word, authenticity. We don't have to go outside of ourselves all the time to find our answers. In order to be authentic, we have to go within ourselves and find that inner truth and trust it.
Right. And it's not just in one place. She defines intuition as intuition is not a single way of knowing. It's our ability to hold space for uncertainty and our willingness to trust the many ways we develop knowledge and insight, including instinct, experience, faith, and reason. So it's not, intuition isn't just a place we go and pluck something out of. It's an amalgamation of everything that we've learned and known and seen, and what we believe in and how we reason about things. That all those slightly perhaps more tangible aspects go together to create what turns out to be our intuition, our gut response.
Right.
Our gut knows, that kind of a thing.
Right. So cultivating intuition and trust and letting go of the need for certainty.
Right.
It's that right there, just letting go of the need for certainty, I think gives people the willies.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, don't want to do that. But this idea of cultivating intuition, it really, really, everybody out there, I want you to hear this. Cultivating your intuition and trusting it is really the new ground of being to stand on in order to create your new normal. Because whatever has happened before right now that you believed in or you quote unquote trusted has shifted. Again, if we go back to the concept that there is no normal anymore, that Greg Braden talked about in his book, The Turning Point, then there is no normal. What do we got? Then we got our intuition. We got to go by our gut. We got to follow our authenticity.
Yep.
So the next one, and then out of that is the next
Next guidepost. Yeah,
guidepost.
cultivating creativity.
Cultivating creativity and letting go of comparison.
Right. Right.
That's fascinating to
Right.
me.
And comparison is all about conformity and competition. I thought that was interesting.
Wait, say that again.
Comparison is all about conformity and competition. So she says, when we compare, we want to be the best or have the best of our group. And then the comparison mandate becomes this crushing paradox of fit in and stand out. It's not, fit in and stand out at the same time. You know, first you have to conform, and then you have to be the best. You know, go in and break out. It's not cultivate self-acceptance, belonging, and authenticity. It's be just like everybody else, but be better.
Okay. I have a story, a personal story to tell. I'll share with everybody. Oh, boy. I went, 7th grade, I started a brand new school. It was an all-girls school. I came from a co-ed school to an all-girls school, and we had to wear uniforms. So we were all right there fitting in. Everybody had to fit in with your uniforms, and everybody had to wear saddle shoes. Well, well, first of all, I have red hair, so talk about not fitting in. But second of all, I got it in my head to change my hairstyle because I was starting a new school, and I got the most awful haircut and as a teenager, you know, that's excruciating. And it was the most embarrassing haircut. I didn't know how to take care of it. And so I started school in September in LA, where it's hotter than anything, wearing a wool hat. I wore a wool hat the entire year because I was so embarrassed about my curly red hair that made me, I was afraid my hair would make me stand out more than wearing the stupid wool hat. Now, come on. So the wanting to fit in and conform is such a pressure for all of us.
Yes. Yep.
And then that place of the comparison where, you know, I know for me at that stage, it was like, well, I don't have pretty straight hair like that person, or, you know, I'm not that hip as that person. And I mean, I was just a geek.
Yeah. I think that's part of being a teenager too. But wouldn't it be great to elevate young people a little bit above that kind of thought, a little bit above like the uniqueness, you know, so that you don't. So simply changing the point of view of yourself. I guess it has to be done individually.
Right. It does. And hopefully. The younger generations are coming in with this, you know, like being born with this like nano chip in their brain that gets, you know what, I'm okay just the way I am.
Little self-esteem chip, maybe,
right?
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I am good enough just the way I am, and so I can express myself how I choose to, as long as it doesn't harm anybody, guys. But how I choose to, so that I don't have to be. I'm not in competition with anybody. Right. That's the truth, isn't it? We really aren't in competition. Again, I want to go back to competition is a man-made idea. If we can get to the truth of our being, that who I am is more than enough, right? And that I am unique and my authenticity is a one-of-a-kind thing that I want to share with everybody, then that competition kind of gets erased.
Right. Maybe replaced with cooperation. Yeah.
And then it's so much easier to be creative and co-create with people.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Letting go of comparison, though, is a constant practice. I mean, it's so ingrained, comparing yourself to others, even as you walk down the street. Oh, well, there, you know, that looks different.
Completely.
It's just, yeah.
Anything. So what I'm hearing is we're talking, Joyce, is we've got several practices. Letting go of competition is a practice. Gratitude and joy is a practice. allowing yourself to be vulnerable is a practice. What else?
Being authentic
is a practice. This is all about reconstructing and maybe even reinventing yourself so that there's more, so you can be more whole in your life and live from your heart.
I think resilient. I think that
resiliency is a practice.
Resiliency is a practice, and a lot of these things lead toward better resiliency. When you let go of comparison, then you become a more resilient person.
Right. And part of what why she coupled creativity with this is because creativity is that unique expression that we all do. And when I talk about creativity, we're not just talking about doing artwork or sculpting or sewing, or we're talking about that creative idea, going back to the intuition, I guess maybe, that causes us to kind of move forward, choosing to express ourselves in a more authentic way. That's the creativity that sources that expression.
Yes. Yep.
Whether it's wearing a wool hat or...
Guidepost number 7 is about cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. So cultivating play. Play is the most important thing that a child can do. That's how they learn, through play. And so the play is their job. And I think as we get older, we let go of play for the sake of play.
Yeah.
It's
we're so busy trying to get stuff done as adults that we forget that playtime is important, and playtime it doesn't have to have a purpose. I now see again, and maybe this is the perfectionism that I'm letting go of, everybody, but I think that play, I have always thought that if I play, it has to be for a reason. How sad. Instead of it just being fun and purposeless. Go swing on a swing set just because. Just because it's there. Or play with the Play-Doh or...
Yep. She goes on to quote a person, Dr. Stuart Brown, who says that play shapes our brain. We need play to be creative, to be innovative, to navigate complex social groups. And that this play thing is important to our wholeness, to become a wholehearted person.
Okay, so let's talk about this exhaustion thing too, because she says letting go of exhaustion is a status symbol. I'll tell you, I know so many people that the busy people that are accomplishing things, the first thing they say when they sit down to talk to you is, wow, I'm just so tired. And it's because I'm doing so much. Look at all I'm doing, and therefore that's why I'm tired. So it must be a good thing because I'm tired.
Right.
Do you see how illogical that is?
Yes. Yeah. We don't spend time we have to be working all the time.
Right. So the play and rest thing is important.
Right. Yeah.
So let's go to the next one, which is Guidepost 8, cultivating calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. This is another thing. If I'm exhausted and I'm anxious, I must be doing something right. That's an old normal, everybody. Just let it go. Because it really worked? It doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And this idea of cultivating calm and stillness is about, she says it's about creating perspective and mindfulness while managing emotional reactivity. Well, that was interesting to me.
Yeah. Yes, trying to be keeping the big picture in mind. Creating that perspective and managing your emotional reaction to it. A reality check back to what we talked about. I like what she says. Try to be slow to respond and quick to think.
That's a hard one for me, Joyce.
Yeah. Are you quick to respond and slow to think?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And again, there's another practice. That's another practice. Practicing being slow, being mindful before you respond.
Yep. That'll count to 10 thing. There's a lot of a good nugget in there.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. I guess I have to practice that in my new normal.
Yeah. And I like that, we often talk about meditation, but she talks about stillness here. Stillness is simply quieting the body and the mind as a way to feel less anxious and overwhelmed. So that's another practice that I got from this book that I've been that I've been practicing is stillness, and stillness to me is walking the dog and not talking on my cell phone at the same time, is doing one thing at a time, is being stillness, like finding the stillness within myself to be really present, to be doing this one thing now.
Yeah, what I've been practicing because of this is going out and sitting in my backyard in the evenings and just looking at the sky and looking at the things that are growing and looking at the bees. And that's, to me, just doing one thing, and it's being still.
And consciously not doing any mental checklist of what you're going to do next or what you're going to do tomorrow, to be really present and noticing and aware of what is around you right now.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to build that into, instead of taking a coffee break, I'm going to take a stillness break.
Right.
And go and sit outside and look at something beautiful for about 5-10 minutes to just calm down. And it's actually helping relieve my anxiety and stress, I got to tell you guys.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. She calls it creating a clearing. I like that.
Yeah.
Creating a clearing for, so sort of whatever comes up has a place to fall in, or the new idea has a place to germinate, whatever it is, and not, maybe you don't even have that, but just to provide the openness, the possibility in case for something to land.
Right. Well, I've got to tell you, creating a clearing makes sense, because if you have a closet stuffed full of clothes, you have no place to put anything new, right? And if we're talking about creating a new normal, you do have to create a clearing so that there's space for what you just said, those possibilities to seed, those new ideas or impulses.
Right.
So number 9, and we're getting ready to wrap this up, awesome, is cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt and the supposed tos. And the meaningful work is gifts and talents, spirituality, making a living, commitment, and I added purpose and a sense of accomplishment or satisfaction. And oftentimes what happens is we tend to create self-doubt by not acting on the things that we do naturally, or what our gifts and talents are. We tend to give them away or put them under a bushel, or, instead of expressing them, which goes back to authenticity and creativity, instead of expressing them. And so then we start to doubt ourselves when we haven't even lived our life yet, by using those gifts and talents. Right.
I like that. I jotted down that I like the part where she said, self-doubt is letting fear undermine our faith.
Ooh.
So if you're afraid to, there's always that little bit of anticipation or excitement when you're going to do something new, but boom, don't doubt it. Go do it.
So the last one, Guidepost 10 of The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, is called Cultivating Laughter, Song, and Dance, letting go of being cool and always in control.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Now, how many times when you burst out in song, do you feel good?
Right. Or for me, it's laughing a little too loud. So, it's like, so what? I laughed too loud. I thought it was really funny.
Right, exactly. And why not celebrate it?
I don't want to be shushed. Thank you.
And not expressing yourself is not living a wholehearted life. So, Joyce, this is like food for thought for everyone.
I think so. I think it's food for thought, and I think it's a good template maybe to try for yourself to see if this is a way to up level to your new normal.
So I want to invite people to possibly to sit down and make a list. First of all, you might want to try the gratitude list to practice gratitude and develop more joy in your life. But also, I think there's a question to ask yourself of what's meaningful in my life right now, and what will foster more joy and happiness and meaning in my life, and kind of see, where am I now? What's the normal I've been operating in? And make a list of that, with qualities like I've been operating in anxiety, or I've been operating in happiness, and what fosters that? What are the things that promote that? And then you can make a choice of what you want your new normal to be, which hopefully is more expansive and and drops you more into your place of authenticity and flexibility and vulnerability. But to make a list, where do I derive meaning in my life? Is it from my job? Is it from my children? Is it from painting? Is it from watching a sunset? Where does that meaning come from, and what does it really mean to me?
Right.
And then, what is it that I might want to change about that? And think about it. There's also this idea of creating your dream list too, and deciding, is my dream list as important as what I want to live my life by, or do they integrate? Do they actually meet? And because sometimes the things we dream about when we're younger, and then we live life and we go, oh, I really can't have that dream. That may not be so. Maybe now is the time to refuel that dream and begin to explore it again from a whole different perspective, from a whole different ideology, if you will. So I just want to tell everybody, if you've missed anything else from listening to Joyce Sherwood and I talk about this wonderful book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Letting Go of Who You Think You're Supposed to Be and Embrace Who You Are, written by Brene Brown. You can go to our website, Living Your Inspired Life, and re-listen to this show and, maybe begin to contemplate what your new normal is. And maybe I can let go of what I think I'm supposed to be and just be who I am. How awesome is that? Joyce, thanks for joining me today. You're always such a gift and pleasure to me.
Thank you so much. It's fun to be here.
Yeah. So I just am going to finish with, and so it is, namaste.